Okay, we are live on YouTube. Let us that is the Talmud. That is not, we are going to be in Second Samuel chapter 19. Let me share my screen for anyone who's joining us. Okay. Second Samuel chapter 19, verse 1 is where we are going to be starting. But first, of course, we'll begin with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshana b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. As always, if you say Amen, you get full credit. And that's where it's great to be with you all this Shabbat and anyone that's joining us on YouTube from anywhere that isn't Topeka, Kansas. Although I guess if you're joining us on YouTube from Topeka, Kansas, you're welcome as well. Oh, would you? Thank you. Yeah. Got one more person joining us. So we'll take, yes, thank you. Sure. We heard you were just slow.
I wasn't locked out of my church. I was defrocked. Line up, Mrs. Burton and neither one.
I don't know. I guess my pop culture references are not quite that a wide or a breadth. Okay. So we are again in Second Samuel 19, verse 1. And of course, David just got the news, not the way it was supposed to be, because it was supposed to be kept from him. But he got the news that his rebellious son Avshalom, who'd driven him off the throne, is not safe as he'd requested that he be, but it was killed. Of course, we remember Yoav was told, his general was told, hey, try and keep this guy alive if you can. And Yoav was like, hey, guys, we're definitely not going to do that because this guy's bad news and Yoav knows it. So he makes a political decision, and here the king hears it. So the king was greatly upset or was shaken. He went up to the upper chamber of the gateway and wept, you know, uh, you know, and moaning these words as he went. My son Avshalom, oh my son Avshalom. If only I had died instead of you, oh Avshalom, my son, my son. Um, Yoav was told that the king was weeping and mourning over Avshalom. And the victory that day was turned into mourning for all the troops. For that day, the troops heard that the king was grieving over his son. The troops stole into town that day like troops ashamed after running away in battle. The king covered his face, and the king kept crying aloud, oh, my son, Avshalom, oh, Avshalom, my son, my son. Yes.
I'm struck with a paradox here. Um, if the king, if David had truly wanted to see that Absalom wasn't killed, he could have given up the kingship. He chose not to do that, but it's understandable that fighting for what he thought was right to kingship, nonetheless, when he hears Absalom is dead, he grieves as a father would.
Right.
That I understand. I don't understand the army. Yoav made a very,
Well,
I
this is
think, wise political decision.
well, so here's the thing. What's happening here is right. So we're seeing here, and it's one thing for him to mourn his rebellious son privately, right?
Yes.
You know what's different? Wailing while you're going through the streets. Essentially, what's happening here, where it says, and the victory that day was turned into mourning for all the troops. For that day, the troops heard that the king was grieving over his son. The troops, it says here, stole into the city, but it's like, right, it does say that, Vikanev. So it's like they stole into town that day like troops ashamed or humiliated people um, steal away in their flight in war. So it's like it was like a retreat instead of they won this war. And they weren't even, it didn't look like this should be really cool, but it doesn't feel that way because the king that you just fought for at great personal risk and at great low odds is doing this. He's crying through the streets. He's upset that they won. What does that feel like?
Yeah. It's interesting he didn't seek retribution against the people who threw the spears or arrows into.
Well, that's the thing, right? This is the question I was going to ask. How much of this is a political calculation of David's? Is it or is it not? In other words, could David be making a totally different political play than Yoav? And maybe it's a miscalculation, but like, could he be making the play that maybe he's doing the whole by showing how, mournful I am, it shows my mercy and my forgiveness because, I don't know. I'm just throwing out there when you think about the character both ways. Yes, it could be a genuine expression that's a bad political move. Either way, I agree with you. I think it's a bad political move that is counteracting what Yoav tried to do, which was just dispose of this guy without any fanfare. We can go back. David's the king. Nobody talks about Avshalom anymore. He was a rebellious son anyway, and he threw the king off the throne and did all that stuff with the concubines. This guy, by any law of the Torah, I'm sorry, I know we're in the 21st century now, but by any law of the Torah, this guy was going to get killed anyway by the court, right? I mean, theoretically, this guy was sentenced to death about 6 ways to whenever you want to do it. Yes?
Yeah.
I mean, look at all that he did. I mean, he had all the sex with the concubines in front of the whole people. Like, that's that. Each one of those is, by the way, is a death sentence. So I guess what I'm saying is, Yoav was like, we're just trying to do this in a way that doesn't. I mean, it's going to be worse if we have to put him on trial, and the public's going to, even if it's quick, it's going to draw attention to this. We need this over with. Put David back on the throne and get back to the business of expanding our growing empire.
There's
If you're Yoav.
a literary and maybe a psychological echo here too. You remind me that Absalom slept with the concubines in front of the whole people.
Yeah.
Here's David grieving in front of the
whole
community. Yeah. Shaming, causing shame.
Right. And it makes the troops feel as like, what did we fight? Like,
Yeah.
if this is how you feel, you should, they would be like, I know we don't think he should. And because he knows God doesn't think he should, and God doesn't think anyone should do anything bad to themselves. But like the troops are like, you could have solved this yourself a while ago. When he kicked you out, you could have just stayed and let him do whatever he was going to do to you. Like none of this had to go this way. It's entirely your decision. Yeah, anyway, so that's I think, does anyone else have anything about this before Yoav confronts the king? Okay. So Yoav confronts the king. It's 2 Samuel 19, verse 6. Yoav came to the king in his quarters and said, "Today you have humiliated all your followers, who this day saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters and the lives of your wives and concubines, by showing love for those who hate you and hate for those who love you. For you have made clear today that the officers and servicemen mean nothing to you. I am sure that if Avshalom were alive today and the rest of us dead, you would have preferred it." Sorry, then the end here, it says, "Now arise, come out and placate your followers. For I swear by God that if you do not come out, not a single man will remain with you overnight. And that would be a greater disaster for you than any disaster that has befallen you from your youth until now."
Point Joab, your counselor, as well as your general. He's a wise man and he's a man with a spine to confront the king.
Yeah.
Right,
That line about love for those who hate you.
right.
Christ talks about it in the New Testament, we're admonished.
I know that Jesus has a lot of Davidic imagery.
Sure.
So they use a lot of the David lines in some form because it links him to David. I know that they liked to, I mean, I know that that's in there a lot.
And the people who deride Christ's mental health say that's ideas of reference.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, if you were a young Jewish boy like he would have been, you probably would have heard a lot of sayings of David. All the Psalms are sayings of
But
David.
he's
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
attributing himself as being the Messiah from a
well,
different
sure, yeah. I
perspective.
mean, you want to link yourself to David for that purpose. If you want to be the Messiah, you have to link yourself to David because you have to be a descendant of David to
But we
be
have to
the.
agree he was either who he proclaimed he was, or he was a.
No, I don't think I agree that it has to be one of those two options. I think there are other options, but you are welcome to. I'm happy that you have your beliefs. I'm not trying to challenge them in any way.
They have mixed motivations. And
Right, yes.
one is to preserve his kingdom.
Right.
And the other is to preserve his son. They don't go together.
Right. But it's truly great here. This is great advice from him. And he's like, hey, now, by the way, it does again strike me right. Like this could have been a scene written right out of Game of Thrones. That this guy then goes, hey, by the way, now you have to go out and smile and shake hands and thank these guys because they all put their lives on the line to save your crown, your throne. I know for you and for God, it's about God. But I'm Yoav the general, and these guys are farmers who pick up a spear and take one to the belly for you. So it's time to go shake hands. Time to get some popularity back because if you don't do it, they're really demoralized and they're going to abandon you. And you're going to be totally alone. It's not like any other time when you've been on the run and you've had your loyal band of followers. This is your loyal, like, if these guys leave, you're done. You got nobody. And the story is going to be written that God picked somebody else, right? That's how Yoav would see it. The prophets are going to find somebody else, and they're going to, the priests are going to put a new person on there, and that's going to be the end of your story.
They reference the Game of Thrones in a nutshell. What's that about? I've heard.
Oh, you haven't seen it.
know.
Sorry. It's an HBO fantasy show that's really about medieval politics, really. It's loosely based on the Wars of the Roses. And yeah, it's about politics in kingdom-based, things. And religion plays something. I mean, obviously not religions like we have. They're all like weird fantasy religions, but you know what I mean. Anyway, it's very political, and they do things with alternate motives and stuff. Anyway, there's a lot of political talking, and with battles interspersed, and that's why this reminds me a lot of it. Yeah, yeah.
When it says, for I swear by God.
Yeah.
If you blah, blah, blah. Are we not supposed to swear by God, or is that just something that I thought I learned a long time ago? Or is it
You're right. You're not. Here's the thing. You're right. And no, not really. At this time, it was much more common for people to take oaths and vows. But remember, oaths and vows are dangerous. Because if you don't do them, you die. Like you're supposed to do them. You're really like they're really serious is what I mean. And the rabbis instituted in the Talmud that we shouldn't do them anymore. And that's actually part of why we have Kol Nidre on Yom Kippur, which Kol Nidre means all vows, but it starts Kol Nidre ve'asareh ve'chinu mei ve'shvuateh, because all those words are different words for vows and oaths, and we're saying all of these are annulled. They're done. They're not binding. Why? Because otherwise we're going to be written in the bad book that day because we've all messed up on something we said in passing by saying, I swear or I blah, or I vow, or by God. Right, exactly. Sorry, now I'm like screaming at everybody in the internet. But like we all say that stuff, but we shouldn't. Those are powerful words, according to the rabbis, according to our tradition. So the rabbis say they're not a thing anymore and nobody should do them. And that's where you get the idea that you shouldn't do that. Not that it's not efficacious, not that we never did, just that we don't do that anymore. It's also not respectful. It's taking, there's some part of the taking God's name uh, in vain by using it for your personal purposes. Again, that's what that really means. It doesn't mean cursing with God's name in the same sentence. I don't know how we got to that being how we take God's name in vain, but that's never really what it used to mean. It means using it for your own vulgar purposes. Anyway, so did that answer your question? Was somewhere in there an answer? Okay, great. I lose track at some point. But yeah, so he says, Kiva Adonai Nishpati, or I swear by God. Re, so yeah, he does say that.
Speaking of Kol Nidre, there's a
Yeah.
really powerful version that's sung by Perry Como on the internet.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I'll have to
Yeah, look
take
it
a listen to it. So okay, so now the king, he listens, right? So Yoav smacks him around a little bit, says, "Hey man, snap out of it." And King David goes, "Oh man, right, I am King David. I have got to like actually do my job. Crazy. This guy rebelled against me and I'm like ruining my whole kingship over it. Time to go do the thing." So the king arose and sat down in the gateway. Again, like the gateway is like the gate of the city. There's like the reason he went up to the second level is generally because they've got some kind of thing they can close, like the port, like you used to see. So anyway, there's generally two levels to it, so that there's a second level where the thing, so that it can close and raise. Anyway, so the king arose and he went back down and he sits in the gateway in the main part of where everyone's coming and going. And when all the troops were told that the king was sitting in the gateway, all the troops, they're like, "Oh, wow, like, okay." Steinsaltz here adds a lot of commentary saying, anyway, all the troops presented themselves to the king. It says, now the Israelites had fled to their homes. So King David realized Joab was right. So he went and he did it. And we presume that he said the right things. He did all that. And in the meantime, all of the people who had been rebels, where it says now the Israelites had fled to their homes, it's referring to the Israelites who had sided with Avshalom. In previous chapters, we'd referred to the Israelites as not all of Israel, but those who had joined with Avshalom. I think there's a little foreshadowing there of the split that's going to come after David's son's kingship, where there will be the people of David's sons will be the people of Judah, and the people of Israel will be those who do not follow David's line, the other 10 tribes up north, and they'll be Israel. So that's kind of, it's setting up that those who stand opposed to David are Israel, which is kind of interesting, right?
David is unusual as a ruler. He listens and he changes his mind on the basis.
Yeah, that's
of
why
listening.
that's why we really like him.
Most rulers don't do that.
Right.
They don't listen and they don't change their mind.
Right. Most absolute power generally corrupts absolutely. That's a truism because it's generally true. Great rulers are with absolute power, essentially. He didn't quite have absolute power, but a lot of power, are the ones who actually pull back a little, the ones who are able to keep themselves somewhat attached to the world. And they do that by being able to those tend to be the people who can take advice, can really see reality and not what sycophants tell them exists. So
Shakespeare suggests they're also the merciful.
right, they tend to also have other good traits because they tend to, again, they're merciful in the sense that what they practice tzimtzum a little bit, right? Self-retraction, where they don't exercise the full extent of their power, and by not using the full extent of their power, end up being merciful in a way that endears people to them because People are afraid of rulers with a lot of power because they could hurt them if they wanted to, and not hurting them engenders them a lot of sympathy and care from their people generally. Also, winning wars and stuff helps a lot in the popularity thing, which David also does.
I'm jumping ahead 300 years, but something you just said,
300 years from David?
yeah,
Okay.
made me think about this in a way that I never had. The rebels are Israel and the division between Judah and Israel, and it's Israel that's overrun by Assyria.
Yeah. Israel's the first one to go. Yeah. And yes, that's again, that's the Deuteronomist is probably, again, I know I don't like to go into like the authorship of the Bible a lot, but the Deuteronomist really shaped our perception of David,
Mm.
even though he was Davidic only because he was working for Hezekiah, or he might have been Josiah or Hezekiah.
Mm,
He might have been Josiah, maybe.
yeah.
We think. But his shaping of Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings, both Samuels and both Kings, um, really shaped everything about how we view David. It's funny because we talk about Chronicles being the sanitized version of David, like the just the good stuff, and it is essentially, but it's a better telling for him. But really, without the Deuteronomist and these books, you don't get a David that's like that. It leads to a David that yields a Messiah, for instance, a David to Judah to you know Ben Yishai ben David, um, you know, Melech HaMashiach. But anyway, we can get back to the text. Um, okay. So verse 10. So something we did all that, and the Israelites, the people that were with Absalom were like, oh, let's go home. And then all the people throughout the tribes of Israel were arguing. Some said, the king saved us from the hands of our enemies, and he delivered us from the hands of the Philistines. And just now he had to flee the country because of Absalom. And what the commentaries share here is what are they saying? We messed up. That was a bad rebellion. David was a good king, and we forced him off the throne, not because he shouldn't be the king, since he clearly won very quickly. So that was just, but because he didn't have his army in the city, like he wasn't ready to fight a war in the palace. Um, that's all they really succeeded in doing, was knocking him out of the palace, because 3 days later he won. So, so they're like, oh, maybe that was a bad idea. Um, but furthermore, Avshalom, whom we anointed over us, has died in battle. Why then do you sit idle instead of escorting the king back? Or why are you silent with regard to restoring the king? So we have to clearly express our joy over the return of David's reign, which is a smart, not just moral or not moral, but a smart political move. Again, what do you see in any of these wars where lords take the wrong side? Bend the knee, right? Declare fealty to David again. Say how wrong you were and how much you love him. And in return, as is expected of a king like David, he'll watch you very closely, but he'll let you go back to your house and he won't kill you because that you submitted to him. So they're saying, okay, shouldn't we do that now? We have to go now and do that, because if we don't, then we'll probably what? Be declared open rebels, and it would be okay to kill us and take our stuff. And then they probably would. So yeah, let's do that. Anyway, the talk of all Israel reached the king in his quarters. So King David sent this message to the priests Zadok and Abiathar. Speak to the elders of Judah and say, why should you be the last to bring the king back to his palace? Oh, that's interesting. No, it's not that. It's that, yeah. They put this first line isn't here. Um, if you look at the translation here, where it says the talk of all Israel reached the king in his quarters, that's here at the end. Udavar kol Yisrael, and the talk of all Israel, ba el hamelech, came to the king, el beito, in his house or his palace. So they put that at the beginning because it is good context for what you're going to read. But that line is actually at the end. Because I looked up at the Hebrew and I was like, that's not what I just read at the end there. And I was like, oh, they did a flipper. They did a flipperoonie on us. Okay. Um, so David heard that the different tribes, some of the tribes that were against him were talking about, their leaders were talking about this. Um, and so he's going to make a move. He's going to make a move. He continues. He says, "You are my own kin," he's saying to the elders of the house of Judah, "my own flesh and blood. Why should you be the last to escort the king back?" Right. You're my tribe. I'm your guy, right? I am your natural king. What, right? Um, and to Amasa say this. Amasa was the commander of Avshalom's army. You are my own flesh and blood. May God do thus and more to me if you do not become my army commander permanently in place of Yoav.
Why is that?
Right. Amasa was the son of David's sister, by the way. He was his nephew. That's how they were directly. It wasn't just that he was Avshalom's army commander. He was literally his nephew, his sister's boy. Um, uh, what?
Why would he want to get rid of Yoav?
He's angry with Yoav for getting rid of for killing Avshalom.
That's just not taking more punitive action against him.
And also there's also the commentaries suggest he was also offended by Yoav's harsh words and quite frankly, Yoav's political acumen. He was concerned Yoav was gaining too much power and that if Yoav felt that he was done with David, Yoav might pull. This is actually kind of prescient because this happens later on. You're familiar in the kingdom of Israel. If you're familiar with Omri, Omri is exactly what I said could happen to David if he got written out of the story by force. That they just say, oh, and then God picked somebody else. That's Omri. He's a general who gets tired of the king and takes his place. But Israel's wicked. So the Bible already tells us that the kings of Israel are bad. So, and we shouldn't be like them. So don't we know about this. It's not like it's nobody's shocked by it. But just saying, he's worried that Yoav is going to do what Omri will eventually do, kill him and take his place. And just make up a lie about it because Yoav's very political and he's got hurt feelings and he killed his boy. So clearly he doesn't respect, right? What is it that royals were always saying for so much time, especially absolute monarchs? What did Elizabeth I get in so much trouble for? Sent Philip of Spain after her with the Armada. Come on, you've all got to have enough history for this.
And heretics.
No, Elizabeth I did what to her sister-in-law? Right, yeah, right. Mary Queen of Scots, her cousin, right. She killed Mary Queen of Scots. It's that Spanish after him. But
that was because Mary, I believe, was Catholic, and of course that would trigger up.
And there was some belief that she might have been plotting against Elizabeth to replace her on the.
They would consider her a heretic of sorts.
Well, sure. I mean, but that's not why they didn't kill her for religion. They killed her because she might have replaced Elizabeth on the throne. But what was so bad about that? What sent Spain to war? Not just because they lost their pretender.
Economics.
spilling of royal blood was a big, big taboo. Why? Because once you kill a king, you could kill lots of kings or queens or whatever. Once you start killing royals and spilling their blood, turns out they bleed just like everybody else. And that's not exactly something that they want people to think that much about. So David here, I'm suggesting part of his feeling now about Yoav could come from, if Yoav is willing to just kill my son, he could kill me. Where's the respect for my royal person and my family and God and all? So that disobedience really gets to David.
But wasn't it somewhat economic, as I suggested, that Britain, England was invading some of the Spanish Empire?
Yeah, in the Netherlands. Yeah, I mean, yes. There's that too, but he needed a reason, and it was the spilling of royal blood that did it.
Well, a wonderful full depiction of human character. Just a few lines before, he's the king who can step back and hear his commander speaking to him and listen to him. He's got both aspects.
Well, he's doing both two things at once here is what he's doing. He's both he sat there and went, okay, Yoav's advice is right. I do need to do this. And at the same time, he sat there and thought, this might be it for me and Yoav. Yoav might have gotten a little big for his britches. And so so he's like, maybe I need kin, even though kin just rebelled against him.
Yeah.
But maybe I need kin to run my army instead of Yoav, who's only been my best friend for like 30 years.
Doesn't Yoav come back in the picture later?
Yeah, don't worry. Yoav's story isn't done yet, but we'll get there. But this is a smart political move, is another thing. Why? Bringing him in brings the army back together at once. So what happened? Amasa did it. So Amasa swayed the hearts of Judah's entire contingent without opposition. Kol ish Yehuda ki ish echad, as if they were one man. And they sent a message to the king, come back with all your followers, right? Because the king is still encamped out there, and we got to find out. And Amasa's army, Absalom's army is scattered, and Absalom is dead. So right now it's who controls the capital. So I guess the answer is Amasa controls the capital. And so by bringing Amasa in, he also assures, because again, remember, where is Jerusalem? It's in Judah. So the people, remember how, like, again, the reason I keep alluding to Game of Thrones is it's helpful for thinking about power. And the reason is why. There isn't a national army except when they're out fighting something. But there are an equivalent of guards, police, whatever you want to call them. But they're each run generally by the tribes of their own area. Those are local forces, not national forces. So there's David's army, but there's also the tribes just controlling various areas and their own forces. Judah's is the largest, and they also control the route to Jerusalem. So David is doing this, so what? So he doesn't have to fight a war, possibly, to get back to Jerusalem when he's already done the thing with Absalom. He's ensuring that this is done. That's what he's saying. Take your king back to, in other words, your troops should accompany me, as is probably common when the king is traveling throughout a certain tribe. One can imagine that the local forces of that tribe, as a matter of pride and defense, protect the king partially, as well as the king's own guard, one would assume, while he travels through those areas. So he's like, hey, Amasa, you're in charge of this Judah force. Even if you don't have an army anymore, are we going to be friends? You should be my army commander. And Amasa goes, okay. And so now Judah's forces, I'm just trying to give you so it doesn't feel like it's 6 people on a road. And that's all the Bible is. There's a whole world happening here. Anyway, so they say, "Come back with all your followers." The king started back and arrived at the Jordan, right? Because he was across, he was outside, he was out there. For all he knew, Amasa could have declared himself king in the meantime. The king started back and arrived at the Jordan, and the Judahites went to Gilgal to meet the king and to conduct the king across the Jordan. So, to be his formal escort, like I was saying. Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjaminite from Bahurim, hurried down with Judah's contingent to meet King David. Uh, Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjaminite, was of Saul's family, who had cursed David on his way into exile. And he said he knew that unless he made amends with David, he was doomed. So Shimei did that, accompanied by 1,000 Benjaminites. And Ziva, the servant of the house of Saul, together with his 15 sons and 20 slaves, rushed down to the Jordan ahead of the king. Right? So all the traders are coming. While the crossing was being made, to escort the king's family over and to do whatever he wished. Shimei, son of Gera, flung himself before the king as he was about to cross the Jordan. Right? So they had a bridge or like a ferry thing, but it's not good. It would have been very temporary, right? To get all this stuff across. So while they're doing this, he's standing on the other side going, "Oh, king," right? He said to the king, "Let not my lord hold me guilty, and do not remember the wrong your servant committed on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. Let your majesty give it no thought. For your servant knows that he has sinned. So here I have come down today, the first of all the house of Joseph, to meet my lord the king." Right? The house of Joseph being the tribes other than Judah. This is another way of saying the Israelites, right? Because there's still this idea that somehow those tribes, which is weird because Judah doesn't descend from Joseph, but weird. Right? Ephraim and Manasseh are the tribes that descend from Joseph, right? That was his double portion. They split Joseph into Ephraim and Manasseh. But doesn't matter. That's just common parlance of the day. Thereupon Avishai, son of Zeruiah, spoke up. "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for that? Insulting God's anointed?" Avishai is a jerk. He's like, right. He cursed, he does all this, he's doing all this flattery, but he cursed God's anointed king. Maybe he should die, is what Avishai says. But David said, "What is this to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah, that you should cross me today? Should even a single Israelite be put to death today? Don't I know that today I am again king over Israel?" Then the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." And the king gave him his oath. Right? Um, right. So this is again, what's he doing here? It's doing the usual. There's an amount of mercy that can be given. And this guy cursed him, yelled at him on his way out of town. He comes and he says he's sorry. It's a day for reconciliation. So that we can make that work. Sure. Now we get Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth, son of Saul, Saul's grandson, but yeah, the grandson of Saul. But it says Ben Shaul also came down to meet the king. He had not pared his toenails or trimmed his mustache or washed his clothes from the day that the king left until the day that he returns safe. Yeah, so the commentary mentions that So Mephibosheth seemed to be genuinely loyal to David. This is a genuine act of, again, had David lost, it would have looked very bad that Mephibosheth was so mournful of David's flight. Some suggest, though, it also has to do with the fact that Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son.
Mm.
Um,
And he's a lame too.
well, yes, he's also right. He also is not of any use to, as we understand it. But yes, but that might be part of why he likes him. And it was when he, Mephibosheth, came to Jerusalem to meet the king asked him, "Why didn't you come with me, Mephibosheth?" Um, so Tzviah had told David that Mephibosheth was not only not distressed by the king's leaving, but that he had aspirations to take advantage of the conflict to say, I should be the true king. That's what David was told back in chapter 16. But now it doesn't appear that that was the case. So David asked, "Why didn't you come with me?" And Mephibosheth replied, "My lord the king, my own servant deceived me. Your servant planned to saddle his donkey and ride on it and go with your majesty, for your servant is lame." The word is literally crippled. Is not piseach. Yeah. Ziva has slandered your servant to my lord the king, but my lord the king is like an angel of God. Do as you see fit. Right. So this Svia or Ziva, it says, but Svia, of these sons of, that we were talking about, they helped David win, but they're also rabble rousers and looking to aggrandize themselves, right? So David's got a problem here with these guys. Now they're lying about this guy, saying, "Oh, he's plotting against you." Turns out that's not the case. Doesn't seem to have been the case. Do as you see fit. For all the members of my father's family deserved only death from my lord the king. Yet you set your servant among those who ate at your table. What right have I to appeal further to your majesty? Right. The king said to him, "You need not speak further. I decree that you and Tzviah shall divide the property." Um, so David had previously said that Siva's property or that Mephibosheth's property would be prescribed, would be taken away from him and given to uh, uh, Siva and his family because they were serving him in that war. But now he's saying, "I'm only taking half of it, and I'm still giving them some because they fought for me, but you get to keep half of it. You're gonna. They had to return the other half to Mephibosheth." And Mephibosheth said to the king, "Let him take it all as long as my lord the king has come home safe." That I don't think that's what happens, but he's so happy that you could have let them keep it all, and I would have been happy. Now we get another guy. Barzillai the Gileadite had come down from Roglim and passed on to the Jordan with the king to see him off at the Jordan. And this is a guy who was a supporter when the king was in exile. So he's not coming down because he needs to apologize. He's coming down because it's time to collect. Right? I mean, if you're the supporter of when the king goes into exile, you bet you in betting terms, you bet on the underdog. You should see a decent windfall from that investment. Barzillai was very old, 80 years of age, and he had provided the king with food during his stay at Mahanaim, for he was a very wealthy man and respected too, they say. The king said to Barzillai, "Cross over with me, and I will provide for you in Jerusalem at my side." Right? So he's like, "Okay, keep coming, come on the journey with me and eat at my table." And right, he's saying, "You get what you paid for, right? You were an investor in my in my take back the throne venture, so now you get to come sit at the table and be a big shot. But Barzillai said to the king, "How many years are left to me that I should go up with your majesty to Jerusalem?" Right? He's essentially asking him again. I'm sorry to use Game of Thrones as the sit on my small council, sit on my council of advisors, be a big shot in the playing of the kingdom. You invested, you get it. I'm going to do that. And Barzillai's like, look, sounds great. I am exceedingly old for 3,000 years ago. Okay, 80 maybe today, not such a big deal. 3,000 years ago, super big deal that you made it to 80. That's crazy old. And Barzillai's like, I'm going to drop dead any day now. So why should you want me to go play court politics with you in Jerusalem? I'm going to go home, right? He's like, I am now 80 years old. Can I tell the difference between good and bad? Right? You can't say that. You can't refuse the king and that and just say, I'm not interested. Thanks. He's got to say, I'm no good to you, right? He says, can I tell the difference between good and bad? Can your servant taste what he eats and drinks? Can I still listen to the singing of men and women? I can't hear, I can't eat, I can't drink, I can't think straight. Come on, man. Why then should your servant continue to be a burden to my lord the king? Right? He's also saying I won't be able to enjoy all the, you want to give me, you want to have girls dance in front of me and plates of food and stuff. And I can't do all the partying that you guys do in the capital. I need sleep. Right? He's like, I can't do it. Your servant could barely cross the Jordan with your majesty. Why should your majesty reward me so generously? In other words, you've been generous, but that's not the generosity I'm looking for. Right? Thank you for your generosity. It doesn't suit me. I need a different kind of generosity. Um, Let your servant go back and let me die in my own town, near the graves of my father and mother. But here is your servant, Chimham. Is it Chimham? Chimham. Chimham. Terrible name. Chimham. Let him cross with my lord the king and do for him as you see fit. And who is his servant, Chimham? His son, of course. So he's not the Lord, he's the lordling, right? Right. He's the kid of the Lord who's the heir. One day he'll be the big shot of that guy's town and inherit all of that Barzillai's money and stuff, or a double portion because he's the oldest son. The rest of the kids still get something. And he'll be the big shot. But for now, he needs to build up a power base, build up political acumen. He essentially wants this kid to go be a ward of the king and to have a great life and to get all the, if you want to repay my family, here, my son, he's like 20 years old. He'll enjoy living in the king's palace. And it appears from elsewhere in the Bible that the descendants of Barzillai were indeed among those who would eat at the king's table for many years. So this guy learns politics well, Chimham, and his kids also are warded by kings in the palace to grow up among the influential of the people so that they can also remain influential among the people. Still how we do it today, it's just a little bit different, right? You want to make sure your kid goes to school with all the people that are going to run Google and whatnot. That way they hang out with the people who run Google. Anyway, you get it. So it's the same thing then. He wants him to hang out with the king, and that's what he's going to do. He says, I don't want to hang out with you, but my son will. And the king said, Chimham shall cross with me, and I will do for him as you see fit. And anything you want me to do, I will do for you. Right? The king's like, hey, man, you're my guy. So, kid, come on, let's go. Let's party with the king. And he's like, oh, man, I've heard how the king parties. Wait till he parties with his son, if he's still around for that. Because his son really parties. He probably won't be. Chimham will probably have inherited by that point, because David lives for a bit. Anyway. All the troops crossed the Jordan, and when the king was ready to cross, the king kissed Barzillai and bade him farewell, and Barzillai returned to his home. The king passed on to Gilgal with Chimham accompanying him, and all the Judahite soldiers and part of the Israelite army escorted the king across. Then Israel's entire contingent came to the king. This is the whole leaders of the people. And said to the king, "Why did our kindred, Judah's contingent, steal you away and escort the king and his family across the Jordan, along with all David's men?" Judah's side replied to Israel's side, "Because the king is our relative. Why should this upset you? Have we consumed anything that belongs to the king? Has he given us any gifts?" And it literally says, "Im nisait nisa lanu." So, has he married us? But in other words, has he like given good marriages to just our tribe as a largesse? In other words, he asked us and we're bringing him home. We thought it was a nice gesture after the whole Civil War thing for a couple days. He didn't give us anything. He hasn't bestowed any privileges on us. You can join us if you want to. Go for it. But Israel's side answered Judah's side, "We have 10 shares in the king, and in David too, we have more than you. Why then have you slighted us? Were we not the first to propose that our king be brought back?" However, Judah's side prevailed over Israel's side. Right? So first they're saying, you're a single tribe. Maybe you have Benjamin or Shimon. Benjamin is usually the one associated to go with Judah. Occasionally people from Shimon are there. Whereas we're 10 tribes. David reigns over all Israel, and we represent the vast majority of the people. He also says, we were the ones who took the initiative in verse 10 to restore the king. So we should have been the ones by honor to do this, to go and get him back from the other side of the Jordan and say, you are our king and we put you on our throne. And it says Judah's side prevailed, but the better translation is Vivakesh Davari. So the words were harder. The words of Judah were harder than the words of Israel. And Judah won this conflict, although it's not evident what the impact of that would be. They're all there and they're all going to be done. And in the end, what are they fighting over? Who gets to have the honor of bringing David back to his throne?
But it is foreshadowing the split that comes after some.
The whole thing, the whole Avshalom thing is really foreshadowing the split, because it shows that division exists and can be exploited. Yeah. And we get some cultural information about that division.
It's interesting that in Kings and Chronicles, Israel can do no good. I mean,
Yeah.
only Judah can.
Right. Yeah.
Judah can
Well,
have
right.
bad, but it gets good. But Israel's bad.
Well, you got to remember that for the Deuteronomist, it's a pass-fail system in which if you fail any of the 6 rubric measures, you fail. You have to pass them all to be a good king. You have to love God. You have to win wars. You have to do well economically. But even more than that, the biggest thing is about the first thing. You have to love God and do what God says. If you don't, you can't be a good king. And what by default, according to the Deuteronomist, is every king of Israel, automatically doing wrong.
Worship Baal.
No, close. You were right for the first word. What do they worship? Where do they worship? There you
outside
go.
of the temple.
Where do they sacrifice?
Bethel.
Yes, Beit El. What's the problem with that?
The temple.
It's not Jerusalem. And according to the Deuteronomist, go back and read your Deuteronomy if you need to see what the rules for kings are. There is only one place for sacrificial worship, the place that God has chosen, which is Jerusalem. So any king of Israel is automatically failing because they are presiding over a kingdom that does its sacrifice not in Jerusalem, because then it would be politically beholden to Judah, but at Beit El, which is only like 30 miles from Jerusalem. It's like southern, it's like in Samaria. Um, so anyway, so it's not really that far. It's like a little north of Ramallah. Shechem, kind of. Nablus, sorry. Today they call it Nablus. We still call it Shechem. Sorry, internet.
I'm overindulging myself.
Yeah, what's up?
Personally. But we're talking 3,000 years ago. And I don't know if you're thinking like I am, Sam. What was his name? Barzillai.
Yeah.
Okay, who says, I'm an old man now, and it's time for me to withdraw from worldly affairs and to attend to more quiet things and to watch my progeny succeed. That's us.
Yeah.
That's the phase of life that we're living.
Well, actually, I go back to progeny of the progeny.
Yes, certainly what he's doing is political to secure a legacy. Again, he's warding his son with the king because it'll get him really good connections and he'll learn really good table manners and he'll learn really good politics. Where do you send that? You send your kid to the capital in every medieval whatever to learn politics, to learn how to be a lord or how to be a administrator or how to do anything you want to do. It used to be the only place where you could get a real education in anything was to be sent to the main city or the capital of a place before 1400 when universities started popping up everywhere. You know what I mean? Like then there were universities in like every major city almost. But before that, you really had to go to the capital of a country if you wanted to learn from the royal court where they would have their royal academies and their royal, advisors and all that. And those people would be in charge also of science and technology. That's just how it worked. They weren't that great at it, but that's how it worked. Anyway, it worked that way here too. So that guy, yeah, he was like, look, you bringing me to party doesn't really help. I'm already important. My kid could really learn to be a better person, like a better leader. Yep, that's what he does. Any other thoughts?
Well, we do the same thing with the Ivy League schools and particularly Harvard.
Right, yeah. Right, it's the same thing.
Connections, it's
Right.
not that bad.
Right, that's what I was saying about the Google comment I made earlier, right? It's just, yeah.
That's why people were paying substantial sums to get their kids
Yeah.
in USC and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, the connections are really important.
Yeah, and West Coast USC had a lot of fun.
I worked at USC for a year because my graduate school was essentially USC.
My parents went to Stanford and they thought I was a retarded because I went to USC, but it was because it was the best music school.
Well, yeah, I guess compared to Stanford, USC isn't very good, but but it's pretty good. I thought it was a great school, and the connections there can't be beat.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Stanford's got great ones too, but there's a lot of great connections you can make it. I mean, if you want to go to a school with every celebrity's child and every billionaire of China's child, then USC is the place to go. Sure, yeah. Right, yeah. A lot of celebrities, I'm saying, yeah, a lot of celebrities in LA send their kids to USC.
Law school, they dominated.
Fair enough. I don't know. I know that they have a good one, but I don't know. Oh, very good. Okay. So let's see. How long is chapter 20? So I see. Okay, that's easy. We'll do that. We're going to do chapter 20. And then we'll wrap up. So a scoundrel. We're not done with this conflict between the groups of Judah and Israel. A scoundrel named Sheva, son of Bichri, a Benjaminite, happened to be there. He sounded the horn and proclaimed, "We have no portion in David, no share in Yishai's son. Back to your homes, O Israel." What's he saying? Right, okay, well, if you're Judah's king, then Judah can have a king. and the rest of us can go home.
Yeah.
And we don't need to have a king. If you're not ours, then why do we care about you?
Mhm. And he's from the smallest tribe, Benjamin.
And the troublemakers, right? Israel's entire contingent left David and followed Sheva, son of Bichri, but Judah's contingent accompanied their king from the Jordan to Jerusalem. They're saying this wasn't a real uprising because I don't know. They're saying it wasn't a real uprising.
Any relation to the Queen of Sheba?
No. I don't think so.
I don't think.
I really don't think so. David went to his palace in Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 concubines he had left to mind the palace and put them in a guarded place. He provided for them, but he did not cohabit with them. They remained in seclusion until the day they died, in living widowhood.
What does that say?
Mhm. It says it was a political thing. I mean, they cohabited with the enemy, and he's not going to kill them, but he's not going to have the enemy.
Yeah, they're in a really weird place politically. I mean, they obviously didn't have a choice in what they did. He's not saying they should have killed themselves rather than have done that, although the rabbis will later say that if you're going to be violated, that's one of the 3 things you can die rather than transgress.
Like,
But he's not saying they should have died rather than done it. But now that the deed is done, he doesn't feel he can be with them anymore. Obviously, he can't let other men be with his former concubines because that leaves a whole political
Mhm.
challenge, maybe a religious one too. So from David's perspective, I'm sorry, but what are exactly his options?
They made it.
They're going to have money and comfort,
Mhm.
but they're going to be watched so they don't go have sex with other guys, and they're obviously not going to have any more sex with David. So that's what living widowhood. Their husband is alive, but they're widows essentially. They won't be having sex with anybody. They won't be getting remarried. Um, they're just going to live on the palace grounds. Right. The king is forbidden religiously from sleeping with them again, since Avshalom is left from them. If he does, he's violated the Torah of sleeping with a woman your son has slept with. You see, Avshalom transgressed the Torah when he did it too, but Avshalom already paid for his death sentences. He's dead. If David does it now, he too gets death sentences. So he can't do it. He also can't let other men, like, it's a trap. Unfortunately, these 10 women are the ones who have to fall, are the ones who it locks on. I'm not saying it's fair or good or right, and I would change it if I could, but I can't.
He's showing some mercy, but judgment that he's not going to.
But it's not even that. If he were to be, in what way could he be merciful that would allow him for people not to die through violating religious commandment? No one is allowed to sleep with them. He can't sleep with them either. If they go out and sleep with people because they just feel like it, they've essentially become black widows. And anyone they sleep with has to be put to death. So what do you do? You don't want to kill them. There's no reason to kill them. He doesn't want to kill them. They just have to be watched. Unfortunately, I'm not saying this is that's why I say it's a trap. It's like you move one piece and it snaps to, and it's a puzzle box, I guess is what I mean. And there's no way out of this puzzle, I guess. I'm sorry about it. It doesn't sound great. That's all I can say. But that's what it is. But now there's a new problem. He's been abandoned by Israel. He's been abandoned. Israel thinks that David's just the king of Judah now, which leaves the other 10 tribes feeling a little off. The king said to Amasa, "Call up Judah's force to my standard and report here 3 days from now." Amasa went to call up Judah, but he took longer than the time set for him. It's unclear whether he couldn't do it in the set time. It's not clear whether it's because the tribe wasn't willing, or Amasa was ineffective, or even if it was like an underhanded betrayal on Amasa's part to try and get it. But considering the tense situation of the time, it's a big failure. And David said to Avishai, "Now Sheva son of Bichri will cause us more trouble than Avshalom. So take your Lord's servants and pursue him before he finds fortified towns and eludes us." So he turns to Avishai. Yeah, we got to get him. Yoav's men, the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and all the warriors marched out behind him. They left Jerusalem in pursuit of Sheva, son of Bichri. Yoav's men means the people who are loyal to David by the people who are loyal to Yoav. So like the old guard, not that Yoav was there. David didn't talk to Yoav. He spoke to Avishai, who works for Yoav. But Yoav is going to join, and in the end, this is where we get Yoav, Amasa is not good at his job, hence why Avshalom lost instantly. Yoav is very good at his job, and David will learn, I think, that it's more important to have a general who's good at his job than it is to have someone who is related to you by blood. Anywho, they were near the great stone in Givon when Amasa appeared before them. Yoav was wearing his military dress with his sword girded over it and fastened around his waist in its sheath, and as he stepped forward, it fell out. Yoav said to Amasa, "How are you, brother?" "What up, Achi?" And with his right hand, Yoav took hold of Amasa's beard as if to kiss him. As well as being relatives, they were allies now, right? Because Amasa's now, right? Amasa was not on his guard against the sword in Yoav's left hand, and Yoav drove it into his belly so that his entrails poured out on the ground, and Amasa died. He did not need to strike him a second time. Yoav and his brother Avishai then set off in pursuit of Sheva, son of Bichri. While one of Yoav's henchmen stood by the corpse and called out, "Whoever favors Yoav and whoever is on David's side, follow Yoav." In other words, keep going, do your job.
Knew how to do it.
Yeah, Amasa lay in the middle of the road, drenched in his blood, and the man saw that everyone stopped. And when he saw that all the people were stopping, he dragged Amasa from the road into the field and covered him with a garment. Once he was removed from the road, everybody continued to follow Yoav in pursuit of Sheva, son of Bichri. Sheva had passed through all the tribes of Israel up to Avel of Beit Makkah, and all the Beerites assembled and followed him inside. Yoav's men came and besieged him in Avel of Beit Makkah. They threw up a siege mound against the city, and it stood against the rampart. All the troops with Yoav were engaged in battering the wall. When a woman who was wise shouted from the city, this is one of those Isha Chachamaz, these wise women. We think they are female Torah scholars. Maybe. We're not sure. They also could be witches. We're not exactly sure. But this isn't just wise woman or woman who was wise. It's a term, Isha Chachama. So it's a wise woman. So a wise woman shouted from the city, listen, tell Yoav to come over here so I can talk to him." This was a standard polite exchange to begin a conversation. The commentary wants you to know that someone says, listen, when they say, shimu. That's not a rude thing to say. That's a normal thing to say. They're saying,
What, pardon me?
yeah, shimu, right? It's not like, hey. They're saying they're probably saying because in medieval times, if you were to say like, hey, Shimu Shimu, they'd be like, what? Don't, that's rude. But like, anyway, okay. He approached her, and the woman asked, "Are you Yoav?" Yes, he answered. And she said to him, "Listen to what your housemaid has to say." "I'm listening," he replied. And that again is the standard way to start a conversation. Saying, "Listen to what you're calling yourself your handmaid," is that's just what a lady says in, um, in polite conversation. And she continued, "In olden times, people used to say, 'Let them inquire of Avel,' and that was the end of the matter." Um, um, I am one of those who seek the welfare of the faithful of Israel, but you seek to bring death upon a mother city in Israel. Why should you destroy God's possession? Yoav replied, far be it from me to destroy or to ruin. What's happening here? I'm interrupting just to see if you see where what the coded conversation is about. She says, "Oh, how dare you come here to destroy the city?" What is she saying when she says that? She's saying, "I can betray the city so that nobody dies."
Hmm.
And Yoav says, I don't want to destroy any city or cause ruin. Not at all. But a certain man from the hill country of Ephraim, named Sheva, son of Bichri, has, re- has rebelled against King David. Just hand him alone over to us, and I will withdraw from the city. The woman assured Yoav,
Yeah.
his head shall be
Same
thrown
as
over.
Paul.
His head shall be thrown over the wall to you. So their negotiation is borne fruit. He said, "Look, we don't have to have a battle. None of this has to happen. I just want this guy dead. You kill him. I'm good. I'll leave. I just need his head. Then you guys can go back to sleep." And she goes, "That's it? No problem. Give me a minute." The woman came to all the people with her wise plan. This is a wise, Isha Hachama, remember. Again, so she's like a prophetess in a way. She's like that level of respect and awe people have for her. So she's going to be able to command the people in a way women usually can't in this time because she's an Isha Hachama. Um, the women came to all the people with her wise plan, and instantly she successfully persuaded them, as I said. And they cut off the head of the son of Sheba, son of Bichri, and threw it down to Yoav instantly. And then he sounded the horn. Those attacking the city dispersed to their homes, and Yoav returned to the king in Jerusalem. Yoav's a man of his word, and so was she. He said, "Look, you deal with this." She turns to the people and says, "If we kill this guy, they'll just leave." And they go, "Okay, sorry." Right?
Yoav always gets the job done, doesn't he?
Yoav always gets the job done. He's one of the best military commanders. And by the way, I mean, what was the last defense minister's name? Yoav Gallant. You know how many Yoavs there are in Israel? A lot.
That's why.
Yes, because he's such a strong, especially in a culture where everybody's going to the army. It's not terrible to be called Yoav. You know what I mean? You want to have some of that. It's a lot of Avishais, a lot of Yoavs, a lot of guys, Tzivas. There's a lot of guys that are military figure, Baraks, Ehuds, all these guys who are military figure. There are also a lot of Shmuels and Benjamins, and there are religious names too, but they're
Barack Obama.
no, that's not different Barak. Not Barak like thunder. Barak means thunder in Hebrew. And it's also the name of whose general, the lady, Devorah. Devorah's general was Barak. So that's the thing. Like all these names are names of generals and soldiers, and they're Pinchas, and they're all strong guys that do strong guy stuff. What? Not so many Amasas. Not so many Mephibosheths. Not so many. I mean, sorry, they're building the new Jew in Israel, right? That was the ethos. They're building a new strong Judaism to contrast itself from the bookish yeshiva Judaism of Eastern Europe. And they were not interested in too many, there weren't a lot of Nebushi names, right? A lot of really strong names, strong Hebrew names. Again, they don't want Aramaic names. They don't want Yiddish name. They want Hebrew names. They're Hebrew people. So anyway, yeah, you'll see a lot of Yoavs in Israel. It's also generational the way it is here. So now they're going to have a lot more Yoavs because the grandparents' generation had a lot of Yoavs, you know. So anyway, um, Yoav was commander of the whole army of Israel. Benaniah, son of I don't know, Jehoiada was commander of the Heretites and the Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of forced labor, enjoying that. Yehoshaphat was son of Achilud, was recorder. Sheva was scribe, and Zadok and Eviatar were priests. Ira, Ira, the Yairite, also served David as priest.
Isn't there a piece of music, Zadok the priest?
Yes, I usually mention that because
They use it in
So-
the coronation of
right, because what will Zadok do? Not yet. What did Nathan do for David? Is what um uh right Nathan and Nathan and Zadok will appoint, or sorry, not what Nathan did for David, what Samuel did for David, and what Nathan does for Solomon. Nathan and Zadok anoint Solomon as king after David's death. They pick Solomon. And that's what they sing about in that song. They say, Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed Solomon king, right? Like that's the song. So like, and they, right, and they do that because it's about an anointing, right? It's about making somebody a king. And they pick this. But yes, Nathan and Zadok are right. At this time, Zadok and Eviatar are priests. So is Ira. Although worth noting, there's no need to decide on a high priest at this point because there's no temple. Until there's a temple where they need to do the annual Yom Kippur sacrifice and a high priest is needed to enter the Holy of Holies, until there's a Holy of Holies, there's no need for a high priest. So there's one of them's in charge, kind of, and we think it's probably Zadok because he's mentioned first. But
We had Aaron as the first high priest. Did he do anything or?
well, he did it in the tabernacle, but back then they had the tabernacle. Right now they don't have a temple or a tabernacle. They don't have,
Place to sacrifice.
right, they don't do it in the same way right now until the temple is built. There's this weird period after they're there and the kingship is established, but before where they do sacrifices for like before battles and stuff, but it's not centralized exactly in one place yet. But Solomon will build the temple, and at that point it's locked.
And I would guess that high priests, even when they're not